finally, I want to walk through executing this file, the test code that is. So we don't need to save this. We will compile this and let's run it with a debugger. So we'll put a breakpoint on main. That's a little too far. Oh, I'm at the wrong end of the file. I'm used to looking for main at the beginning of the file. Now, of course, it's at the end as test code. I tripped myself up. So we'll put a breakpoint on main, and I'm going to give us a little room to see things, and we'll start single stepping through here. And again, remember that we can step one step at a time with this down arrow, and if we come to a method call, we can jump into that method call using this bent arrow. So I'm going to jump back and forth between these two modes, but let's kind of walk our way through this a little bit. So when we create a new object of any kind equals new constructor, now we know that all we're doing is exercising that constructor. So I'm going to step into that, and notice that we jump to the default constructor. So we're initializing a few variables, and now we're exercising the default constructor and jumping back to where we came from. And now we have this object P1 created, and if we expand that, you can see that we've got fields for first name, last name, birth date. Birth date itself has month, day, and the year, gender, height and weight, tolerance, and a format. So even though these aren't exactly instance variables per se, they're intended for the private use of the class only, they're still going to show up for person 1. So we can do the same thing here. Now we're going to jump into the full constructor. And notice that the first thing we do, we're actually jumping into the CS12 date constructor here. I'm going to step past that. We're actually in CS12 date right now. Let's jump in there. And now we are in the full constructor, and again we're initializing the tolerance and the format specifier, and then coming back to initialize all of our instance variables with the provided values. And then when we come back to our main method here, now we're going to have a P2 object in existence with all the values that we specify. Same thing when we set up this P3 object. If we go into that, we're going to start by calling this, which is simply a call to our default constructor up here. And we're overlaying the things that we've changed. And now we've got a P3 object. And then if we print these out, here's the toString output, here's the print output, here's the overloaded print output with the descriptor in front of it and a little blank space. So this is a nice way to test our display methods. Use toString with the name of an object and then use the print method. And we can see that we've set up all of these objects as we expect them to be. I'm going to give myself a little bit more room here for the output. In this next section of code, we're simply extracting the individual instance variables for the P2 object and printing them out. So we're just simply printing out two strings, a CS12 date, a char, a double, and another double, and a blank line. Again, remember to add these blank lines liberally in your test code to make your output a little more readable. Otherwise, all of this output is simply going to blur together and it becomes very difficult to follow. So again, we're going to test our mutators, and I'm going to expand the P2 object and show over here that as we make these changes, we're going to see the corresponding changes right away in the debugger. So anything that turns red has just been changed. So now we're about to update the birth date, the gender, the height, the weight, and we'll print out the object to the screen with all the changes we've just made. And we've confirmed that our mutators are working. Now we get to the prompting mutators, And now I'm going to have to go back and forth between the arrow and the command line. Oh, what the heck, I'll put my own birthday in here. You can do the, whoops, looks like I screwed up the code there. Let's advance it a little bit here. It's asking for my biological gender and my height and my weight. It's making some numbers up here. We print everything out and we get to our equality tests, and two objects are different from each other. An object is the same as each other, and an object is not equal to a string. So we've just run through all of our test code. So in a nutshell, this is what all of our changes look like, and this is what our test code should look like. And when you're implementing your class, you should probably plan on putting some analogous test code together for your class as well. Test the constructors, test the accessors and mutators, use the display method, use the equals method. And you can run this over and over again whenever you make a change and confirm that any changes you've made are good and proper. Okay, that concludes this walkthrough of PersonPhase8 for the Person class.